and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 232, and today's date is December 6th, 2013, and the title of this episode is Unemployment Down, Stock Market Up, Gold Down, It's Taper Time. And we understand that the Fed will never, ever taper. They're just keeping this out in front of the American public to keep up the illusion that things are really getting better. The economy is recovering. President Obama has Biden out there campaigning with other Democratic leaders, letting everyone know we are on the right track. Hurrah! And we understand that this is completely fake. It is an illusion. All the numbers are manipulated, but they need to show everyone that things are getting better. Housing is getting better, even though mortgage applications are plunging. JP Morgan, Citibank, Bank of America have laid off thousands and thousands of people in their mortgage division. Let's see, the Fed is still continually buying up tons of toxic mortgages from the banks. The banks are still pumping up the stock market from the money that they're receiving for the toxic real estate. So we're really not seeing what they are saying, but the rest of America who is sleeping, not awake, they're seeing that things are getting better because we see the unemployment has dropped. Wow, everything is getting better, and really this is a complete illusion because they have an event that is scheduled, that is ready, and they are going to use this event to show that the economy was getting better, and all of a sudden this cyber attack, this dirty bomb attack, this chemical attack brought the United States to its knees. It collapsed the recovery, and now the Fed needs to step in again and increase QE. And this is why they were out there saying that they might need to increase QE by 50%. They are just laying the groundwork to let us know what's really happening. But don't worry. There are no bubbles being formed whatsoever. Janet Yellen will let us know if there are any bubbles, just like Bernanke did in 2008. You know, they had the subprime contained. That wasn't a problem. And he said this in 2008. The real estate market is fine. It's a little bit slowing right now, but it looks like it's going to be picking up. And in 2008, don't worry, we are not forecasting any type of recession whatsoever, and the stock market is no way in a bubble, and housing is no way in a bubble either. And they have said the same exact thing this time. The only difference this time is that unemployment, the real unemployment, is around 25%. This time, the Fed is the entire market. They are pumping it up with printing or creating money and pumping this into the banks. The banks then are pumping this into the stock market. The rest of the world, like China, Russia, and other foreign nations, are going in a different direction. They are no longer using the US dollar. They don't see it as a benefit. So what are they doing? Well, they're not buying any more treasuries. Actually, they're selling them. So the Fed needs to pick up the treasury bonds. China is rejecting buying new treasury bonds. So if they don't buy them and the government is still borrowing and issuing treasury bonds, someone's got to buy them, and that is the Fed. And if the Fed keeps up the pace right now, I think it was the end of 2014, they'll own half of the treasury bond market, and I think by 2018, I think I said, or 2017, they will own the full treasury market. The the U.S. government, the central bankers are losing control over the Middle East, so we understand that they are completely losing control, and once these foreign nations figure out what is really happening, and most of them understand what is happening, and that's why they're making deals with China and Russia right now, they will be sending U.S. dollars, they will be selling their treasury bonds, and all of that will be flooding back to the United States. And this is where the problem will start. But let's get into the economic collapse news right now. We see that Germany, their industrial orders are down by 2.2% in October, and what they are looking at as the foreign bookings that have decreased by 2.3%, and domestic orders slipped to 2.0%. So Germany is feeling the same type of problems as the rest of the Eurozone. It took them a little longer to get into this, but now they are. Unemployment is creeping up, and the UK is also feeling this. A lot of the UK people are diving into their personal savings to make ends meet, and the Eurozone is just plagued with high unemployment, high debt, and they are just drowning, and they are in a recession slash depression right now. But again, the propaganda is out there telling us that everything's fine, that they're recovering, they're coming out of the recession, and everything looks a-okay. So here in America, what is happening is, of course, the unemployment has come down. It was 7.3, now it's down to 7%, and they're saying that things are just getting just better, and we're recovering, and that's what they're going with. And the Fed was out there today saying that they're going to taper, and things are looking really, really well, and they want to see if they can meet that 6.5% goal of unemployment. And we have to see where these jobs are. I mean, let's take a look. We understand we're in the holiday season, so what happens in the holiday season? Well, a lot of companies have to hire part-time work to handle the holiday season. Even though this holiday season, a lot of retailers are telling us, and even from the numbers that have been coming in, this holiday is not looking good. But they still hire the people to handle, and they hope that things are going to get better. So, and of course, we have to remember that Obamacare is out there now. The exchanges are opening, even though they don't work well. The website's having problems, and people are not really going out and purchasing the health insurance. They've still hired the people, and we're seeing they've hired about 12,000 people in the healthcare services and about 7,000 more physicians in the healthcare industry. And we have to remember, because of the holiday season, we have transportation who handles delivering packages, UPS, FedEx, DHL, all these different companies, United States Postal Service. You normally hire part-time work to handle the additional packages that they are delivering to homes, because a lot of people are purchasing their gifts online. So they have increased their hirings around 31,000 to handle the holiday season. And again, in retail, they have increased their total number of people, around 68,000 people in the retail industry to handle the holiday rush, and this is what's happening right now. But we also have to look at the government. They have hired around 41% of new jobs in November, and this new hirings of people really has nothing to do with small businesses or manufacturing or producing anything. This is because the government is borrowing money. They need to make the illusion, continue the illusion in the industry, and they have the ability to hire people. And you have to remember, the government is borrowing money like there is no tomorrow. And really, there really is no tomorrow the way they're doing it. And we're up to 17 trillion, and this is just escalating as time goes on. There's not enough revenue to meet this debt, and this whole thing is going to completely come tumbling down when everything when the free market actually realizes what's going on. The rest of the world starts going, hey, you know what? This is getting out of hand here. We don't want the dollar. We don't want the treasury bonds. And all of a sudden, the illusion starts crumbling apart, and this is when everything starts to fall apart and we enter a collapse. But we have to see what else is going on here. The car and student loan account for 95% of all consumer credit issued in the past year, because we have to remember, the central bank, the system works by people borrowing, and if people stop borrowing, the system comes to a screeching halt. So they need people to borrow, and since people are tapped out in the revolving credit, credit cards, they need to spur other type of borrowing. So what they did was they allowed subprime borrowers to borrow and purchase cars. Doesn't matter if you have credit or no credit. They needed people to do this. So we're seeing a lot of borrowing in the car industry. We're seeing the a lot of people purchasing homes, even though mortgage applications have declined. People have been purchasing homes because they can get 100% financing. I was recently during Thanksgiving at my cousin's, and they purchased a home in the area. And when I drove into the development, it was complete 100% financing. And this is how people are getting homes at this time. And we have to remember, the auto manufacturers are now channel stuffing, and they are taking on a lot of inventory. They have 76 days of cars sitting on their lots, but the manufacturers are showing that they are producing, and that's why GDP is also up. So we can see how this illusion all fits in and everything looks great. But what's strange is that personal income is continually falling. And even though they're showing that borrowing is up, and then, of course, the corporate media is out there saying everything looks great, borrowing is up, people are spending, it looks fantastic, but the saving rate is plunging. Now, we can see why this is happening, because the real unemployment is not 7%. Underemployment, where people went from a full-time to a part-time job, what is happening is people are not making the same amount of money, or they're not making money at all, or they're on unemployment insurance. And since this is happening, we're seeing the savings rate goes down. We're seeing that their personal income is declining. And of course, the Fed, the government, their all expectations was, since the unemployment's going down, and more people are working, they expected the personal income to go up by 0.3%, but it declined by 0.1%. And the personal savings plunged from 5.2% to 4.8%. So we can see why this is actually happening. And if you look through all this, we see a clearer picture of why the borrowing is happening. We see why unemployment has come down to 7%. And again, in December 28th, when the unemployment insurance runs out, the extended unemployment insurance runs out, we're going to have 1.3 million drop off, just like we've had many other people drop off, and they won't be counted. So we have to see how the government's going to play this. If they extend the unemployment insurance, they will still count them and keep the unemployment the way it is. If they drop off, the unemployment's going to go from 7% to something like 6.5. Wow, that is the Fed's goal. And you can see how this is playing out. And we're going to have to see what happens with Congress and how they vote on extending this unemployment. And again, they are discussing this and talking about extending it right now, but nothing is set in stone, and we'll have to wait to see how this plays out. Now, I talked a lot in my other reports about the yuan, how it's becoming more widely accepted. It's becoming more of a currency that other countries want to use. And right now, the yuan is now among the most actively traded currencies in the world, as the Chinese government moves to make it easier for the yuan to flow across its borders to other countries. Now, what they want to do is they want to expand what they've already done. We understand in Kenya there is a clearinghouse for the yuan. We understand that the UK is allowing the Chinese to do a currency swap. The Chinese banks are opening up in the UK. Cameron has made a deal with the Chinese for a trade agreement. And we see many other things happening with the yuan. They are selling oil in the yuan, and the trading of the yuan in global foreign exchange markets has more than tripled from 3 years ago. So now they are making a run, and the United States, the central bankers, see this, and this is why China is a threat to the central bankers, and this is why there has been a pivot to Asia, where the United States is encircling China. Because again, if you do not have a Western central bank, you are an enemy to the central bankers, and you are an enemy where they will start war to get their way. And as the US dollar is continually imploding upon itself and the yuan is spreading out across the world, the central bankers are becoming desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. And this is why war will eventually start, because they will not let the system go. They rather have war than have the system collapse and crumble from under them. And their plan, of course, is to reset the system once the war is over. And our duty is to make certain that that doesn't happen, because our government, the United States government, can issue currency without the Federal Reserve System, and they can issue the currency without interest. It is written into the Constitution. They are allowed to do this. The United States has done this prior to 1913, but again, the United States was taken over and compromised in 1913 and up to this point. Now, since the unemployment rate has come down, the Fed officials were out there saying that they need a clear plan to wind down QE3 and to start the tapering process. And we heard this back in August and September, where they needed the plan and they needed to start unwinding and start tapering and things like that. But the event that they were expecting didn't happen, and all of a sudden, things went completely the opposite direction. And here they are again trying the same thing, because they realize and they understand that there is some type of event going to that will occur, and they will make their move and blame it on another country. Now, with Obamacare, as everyone knows, I do not agree with. It is not for the people. And I've said this many times in my other reports, and the Obamacare, the website is a complete disaster. And right now there are additional glitches in Obamacare in the website. Information is not being transferred automatically to other systems, like to the insurance companies. They are not getting their information. They are also not getting their payment. And people shopping for insurance on the federal marketplace may be informed they're eligible for Medicaid and that their information is being sent to state officials to sign them up. However, states say they aren't able to enroll them because they're not receiving any type, or they're receiving incomplete data from the Obama administration. Because what they've really done is they fixed up the front end of the website to make it look really nice and look like it's performing correctly, but the back end that does the heavy grunt work of moving this information to the proper places is not working at all. There are many, many glitches, and this is the heart of the system, and it is a complete disaster. And again, Obamacare is a cash grab. It is a system where they can build tax revenue from the people, because if this was truly for the people, they wouldn't penalize people if they didn't want it, and they wouldn't have to increase the premiums, and they wouldn't have to make these large deductibles. Because what happens with these large deductibles is when you get a Obamacare policy, you go to the doctor. If you're spending $600-700 a month premium, you might have a $5,000-6,000 deductible. You have to pay the $5,000-6,000 before insurance even gives you anything towards your visits. And most people don't even reach the deductible limits, and they never even access any of their insurance. So they're paying $6,000 a year for their deductible if they meet it, or whatever they meet up to, and they're also paying for the premium. So you haven't even received any of the benefit from insurance whatsoever. Plus, the businesses are looking at this and saying, we're cutting hours. We're not giving people insurance. So if you have a spouse on working in a company, they're saying that their spouse needs to go to the exchange to get insurance. So now you're getting insurance from the company, and you're also paying for insurance outside on the exchanges. So this is not a win-win for anyone. The only win-win is the insurance companies and the government. Because like I've said before, when the government starts to tax people more and more and continually makes up new taxes, we know we're in the end game because they cannot meet the debt interest payments, and this is why they need the increased tax payments. And we see this happening in France. We see it happening in Italy. We see it in Greece. We see it in Cyprus. We see it in the U.S. And we're going to see a lot more of these taxes being pushed upon the people. Now, there was a Army officer who wants the American people completely disarmed, and this is Lieutenant Colonel Robert Bateman, and he is out there saying that no one needs a weapon whatsoever, and he is making some suggestions on and who should have a weapon and what type of weapons that everyone should have. And these are the only guns that he believes that should be permitted, and what he says is that he's going to add this to the gun plank and to the Bateman Pierce platform. He's saying that a smoothbore or rifled muzzle loading black powder muskets, number 7-11 in history, has ever been held up with one of these. A double-barrel breech-loading shotgun, hunting with these is valid. A bolt-action rifle with a magazine capacity no greater than 5 rounds is perfect. And he says, we will pry your gun from your cold, dead fingers. Police departments are no longer allowed to sell or auction weapons. We will submit a new tax on ammunition. We will initiate a nationwide buyback program, and the major gun manufacturer of the United States can only create weapons for the federal government and not for the people. And again, we understand their whole mission here is to disarm the American people. The UN Arms Treaty is signed by John Kerry. The gun bill from Dianne Feinstein is also pending in the Senate, and they are pushing everyone to pretty much turn in their weapons, just like what is happening in New York. New York decided to implement the draconian gun law, which is completely null and void according to the Second Amendment, but people go along with it. And when they tell you that you have a weapon that is that can handle more rounds than it is that's legal, and you need to turn it in, people comply. And I said this in my other report: when the government has this false flag event, which will allow them to push the legislation through, you will see letters going home to people to turn in their weapons. And I'm going to say about 80% of them will do it. And that's how fast it will happen. It will not take that much time, because a lot of people who have these weapons will be too afraid, and they will go to their police stations and hand them in. It's the 20% that will not. And this is what the government is afraid of, that 20% of the people. The 20% of the people, this is why they're creating the list. This is why they're using the surveillance. This is why during the collapse and after the collapse, they are going to come for these people, because this is the threat that they're afraid of, because the government people do not want to lose their power, and they want to keep their power, and this is why this is being done at this time. Now, there is a company out there that's pushing this crime predicting robot, and they're saying it will be on everyone's street by 2015. And this is the K5 autonomous data machine. It is a 300-pound, 5-foot-tall mobile robot. It will be equipped with nighttime video cameras, thermal imaging capabilities, license plate recognition skills. It will be able to function autonomously for select operations, but more significantly, its software will provide crime prediction that is almost like the Minority Report. When they had the precogs, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but they have these precogs who, I guess, could see into the future. A little marble would roll down, and they would say this person will commit a crime sometime in the future. The police would go and collect this person and put them in jail before they committed the crime. And they're saying that this robot is going to do this. And they're also saying that it will have facial recognition. And what this robot will be able to do, it will be able to read the license plate. Let's say someone is trying to steal a car, It will take a picture of the person's face, use facial recognition, take a picture of and read the license plate, put the two together and say this person does not belong with this car. And they will use this and expand upon this, where the robot will be able to pick up saying, this is the person we needed to pick up. They're located because they have GPS and a 3D mapping type of algorithm which can show the authorities exactly where they are, where the person's going to, and other drones and other systems will be able to pick up that person. They'll be able to use the social profiling. So if you're running to someone's house, they will understand that that is the person's sister's brother, cousin's friend, and this is how all of this is playing out. I mean, if they're saying that they're going to be able to put this on everyone's street in 2015, this is a police state. This is a police state where you are monitored, tracked every minute of the day. Now, talking about police states, Japan, and I mentioned this in my other reports, well, Japan secures final passage of their secrecy bill. And you're going to see many more countries. We're already seeing protest bills. Now we're seeing secrecy bills. We're seeing in the United States where you're not allowed to protest if there's some type of government official anywhere or anywhere nearby. Dianne Feinstein wants to pass a bill where you're not allowed to talk badly about the NSA, or if you do, you could be arrested or fined. And right now, Japan is doing the same exact thing. And what they're saying is the right to know has now been officially superseded by the right of the government to make sure you don't know what they don't want you to know. Ask the wrong question, 5 years in jail. And of course, trials about state secrets would be the nature of the law, also be secret trials and closed to the public. So everything will be a secret. This is almost like Nazi Germany. Whistleblowers and journalists face up to 10 years in jail for exposing anything the Japanese government declares a special secret. But again, what is a special secret? Well, no one knows because it's a secret. And this is how governments work. And you are going to see this spread because what's happening now, governments realize that this entire system is coming apart. It is collapsing. There is no stopping it. This is why they need these protests to stop people from protesting. This is why they need these secrecy bills. This is why they're trying to pass this legislation. This is why they're setting up a police state, because they need to control the people when everything completely falls apart. Biden was out in Asia, and what they are saying, the vice president was out there saying that there is no doubt that the U.S. is in full pivot mode right now to Asia, and it is a complete strategic shift to the Asian area. Now, why would he be saying this? Well, because the threat is China, and there is a threat to the reserve currency of the world, which is the U.S. dollar. The yuan is making its play and its move, and we've seen this from all the signals that are being shot across the bow of the United States, with China saying that they don't see the benefit of the U.S. dollar. Russia saying that we believe the U.S. dollar is going to collapse in 2017 or sooner, and we really don't want to have anything to do with the U.S. dollar. China saying that they're going to sell oil in the yuan. China making deals with the U.K., Australia, Iran, Africa, pouring billions of dollars of U.S. dollars to get rid of the U.S. dollars into the infrastructure of Africa. They are making deals all over the globe, and this is a threat to the U.S. dollar, and this is why the pivot to Asia is picking up. This is why you see more military assets being moved to that region. Now, the Russians have said, since we are making this peace talk, and I've mentioned this before, why does the United States need to continue with the missile shield in Europe? This missile shield was put into place, and it's being expanded upon right now. They're building more. Why do they need to continue this if they're making this deal with Iran and it looks like we're going for peace? There's no reason to do this. Well, the White House came out and said that the Iran deal won't affect the NATO missile shield. They are going forward and they are evolving the NATO missile shield and reinforcing it with new technology. It doesn't matter what's happening with Iran because they are not going to stop what they're doing. And you have to wonder why. Because this peace talk, this deal, this resolution with Iran is a complete illusion. They understand that there can be no peace because their agenda for the last 30 years was to get into Syria and into Iran. And this is what they're going to try to do. They're going to attempt to do this once more. And in my other reports, I've been showing that there is some type of false flag event that is going to occur that will allow them to move into Syria and Iran. I mean, already, just to recap here, we've seen that the UN report has come out against Assad, saying that he has committed war crimes. We've seen this back in Libya with Gaddafi, and they used NATO forces to invade Libya and to remove Gaddafi. They couldn't do the strike with the U.S. forces because Congress and the American people were not for this, so they're using a different approach. We also understand that CNN has reported that chemical weapons are missing. And there was, and Assad is keeping a cache of chemical weapons that the UN does not know about. And just yesterday, the Syrian rebels said that Assad used chemical weapons on people. So they are spreading this propaganda. And also the United States will be dumping the chemical weapons out at sea using a United States ship. And who knows, some of that could end up back here in the U.S. So you can see how they were pumping and planning to have some type of event. They are just setting everything up. And again, this is going to be a multi-pronged type of event. And right now, lawmakers who've just met this Thursday saying the grid, the power grid test, and everything that they've done is not enough, and they're voicing their concerns that the electrical grid is completely not protected at all. It is clear that the electrical grid is not adequately protected from physical or cyber attacks. And this is coming from the House Energy and Commerce Ranking Member Henry Waxman at the Energy and Power Subcommittee hearing that examines the role of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And they're saying that the infrastructure is so vulnerable right now to a cyber attack that they want to have some type of policy to beef it up and protect it. And we understand that DHS was supposed to be heading up, the protection of all the infrastructure and heading up the defense program against cyber attacks, and their systems aren't even protected against cyber attacks. Now, we understand that banks are being hit by cyber attacks all the time. I mean, every single day they're being hit. And we've seen it in the news that NatWest, something happened on Black Friday. Well, it came out that they were hit with a cyber attack, a denial of service attack, which brought their systems to the knees, and people could not purchase or take out money at this time. The bank couldn't even operate. And what this goes on to say that NatWest has been targeted in a cyber attack which prevented customers from accessing their websites and making purchases during Black Friday or accessing money. And due to a surge in internet traffic deliberately directed at the NatWest website, customers were experiencing all different types of difficulties, and they are saying that yes, this was some type of cyber attack that brought the bank to its knees at this time. Now, we've heard Dianne Feinstein, Mike Rogers, and other government officials saying that they're very concerned about Al-Qaeda running around in the United States, running around in lone wolf groups. Those people coming back from Syria could be radicalized, and what they are seeing now, and that Al Qaeda is online trying to recruit Americans to be part of the Al Qaeda terrorist group, and the State Department is stepping up its online efforts to combat this at this time. And this was in the New York Times, where they're saying that that they're trying to recruit people in the U.S. to become domestic terrorists, and to to they're trying to recruit them to go off with these lone wolf groups to commit terror attacks among their own people. And right now, the State Department realizes that this is a huge, huge problem, and they're trying to combat this and stop the people, because they don't want what happened in the Boston bombing, where the Tamerlan brothers, uh, were sucked in by Al Qaeda, and it was it came out that they went online, they read the magazines, they were on alternative websites reading the conspiracy theories, and they were able to hook up with some type of faction, create the pressure cooker bomb that bomb Boston Marathon, and they don't want this type of thing happening again here in the U.S. And you can see when you put all of this together what they're trying to promote. They're saying that, regular U.S. citizens could be domestic terrorists. And again, we have to remember this is what DHS was created for, and they're building up the terrorist threat again in the United States, with Dianne Feinstein and Mike Rogers out there saying that the threat is even larger than during the 9/11 World Trade Center coming down, and we can see something that could happen, which would be a lot worse than the 9/11 tragic event at that time. So everyone should be prepared, because we understand they are getting ready to do something. Something is coming. They are really pushing the recovery full steam ahead right now, and we are just probably months or days away from something happening. And if you haven't been preparing, I would start preparing. And if you have been preparing, continue to prepare for what is about to happen. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.